I was elbow deep in bread dough when my mother walked into the kitchen, her face wearing that expression I'd grown to dread, the one that meant she and Dad had been discussing my future again. "Anna," she started, wringing her hands in her apron, "your father and I have been thinking." I kept kneading, letting the familiar motion ground me. The morning sunlight streamed through the cafe's windows, catching on the copper fixtures I'd carefully chosen when I'd renovated this place. Every detail of Sweet Dreams Bakery and Cafe had my fingerprints on it, from the vintage-inspired wallpaper to the carefully curated menu of artisanal breads and pastries. "Let me guess," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's about James taking over." She brightened, seemingly relieved that she wouldn't have to break the news herself. "Yes. You know how he's been struggling since losing his job at the investment firm. Your father thinks this would be perfect for him. He has an MBA, after all." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Mom, James doesn't know the first thing about running a bakery. He's never worked in food service. He doesn't even cook his own meals. But he understands business," she pressed on. "Numbers, management, all those things you struggle with." I finally stopped kneading, turning to face her fully. "Struggle with? Mom, I've turned a profit every month since we opened. I paid back the startup loan in half the expected time. The cafe has a waiting list for specialty orders." But I could see my words weren't registering. In my parents' eyes, I would always be the impulsive daughter who dropped out of business school to attend culinary arts programs. Meanwhile, James would always be the golden child, even after getting fired for risky trading decisions that cost his firm millions. "Your father's already discussed it with James," she continued as if I hadn't spoken. "He's very excited about the opportunity. Think about it, Anna. You could focus on what you love, the baking, and let James handle the business side." I wiped my hands on my apron, leaving floury handprints. "This is my business, Mom. I built it from nothing. Dad may have co-signed the initial loan, but I'm the one who turned this old building into something special." She touched my arm, her expression patronizing. "Honey, we just want what's best for everyone. James needs this. He has a family to support. And I don't matter." I asked quietly, "My dreams don't count because I'm single. Because I'm a woman." "Don't be dramatic," she sighed. "Your father's already drawn up the papers. James will be taking over as managing director starting next month." The world tilted sideways for a moment. "Dad can't do that," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I remembered the fine print on the loan documents. My father's co-signature had come with conditions. Conditions I foolishly agreed to because I never thought he'd actually use them against me. That evening, my father and James came to the cafe after closing. I sat across from them in one of the booths I personally reupholstered, listening as they outlined their plans for my dream. "We'll streamline operations," James said, scrolling through something on his tablet. "Cut the specialty items, focus on mass market appeal. No more of this artisanal nonsense." "That artisanal nonsense is what built our customer base," I pointed out. James rolled his eyes. "The customers will adjust. We need to think bigger, Anna. Chain potential, franchising opportunities. Not this small-time stuff you've been doing." My father nodded approvingly. "James has some excellent ideas for modernization. It's time this place grew up, became a real business." I looked around at my cafe, at the hand-painted signs, the wall of customer photos, the display case full of carefully crafted pastries. Everything that made it special, everything that made it mine, was about to be dismantled by my brother's corporate vision. "And if I refuse?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Dad's expression hardened. "Then I'll call in the loan. You can't afford to buy me out, and you know it." He was right. I put every penny of profit back into the business, improving equipment, training staff, building something sustainable. I didn't have the cash reserves to buy out his stake. James leaned back, a familiar smirk playing on his lips. "Don't be difficult, Anna. This is for the best. You can keep baking your little treats. Leave the real business to someone who understands it." I stood up slowly, reached into my pocket, and pulled out my keys. The keychain was a small copper whisk, a gift from my first employee on our opening day. I set them on the table with a soft clink. "Go ahead," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "Take it. Since you're the man of the family, you must know better than me." James snatched up the keys immediately. Dad started saying something about how I was being sensible, but I was already walking away. I pushed through the kitchen doors one last time, running my hand along the industrial mixer I'd saved 3 months to buy. Then I grabbed my bag from the office and left through the back door. They didn't know about the photos I'd been taking, documenting every detail of the cafe's operations. They didn't know about the copies I'd made of all our recipes, supplier contracts, and customer records. And they definitely didn't know about the new business plan I'd been quietly developing ever since James first started hinting about helping with the cafe. I'd learned one thing from growing up with James. When he wanted something, he usually got it, and then he usually destroyed it. So I prepared for this moment, gathering everything I'd need to start over when the inevitable happened. As I drove home that night, I didn't cry. Instead, I started counting the days until James would prove exactly why this had been a terrible idea. I didn't have to wait long. The changes started immediately. James wasted no time implementing his vision for Sweet Dreams. First, he fired Maria, my head pastry chef who had been with me since opening day. Too expensive, he said. Then he replaced our carefully sourced ingredients with cheaper alternatives and cut our signature items in favor of mass-produced pastries from a commercial supplier. I watched it all from a distance, getting updates from Lucy, one of the baristas who still texted me regularly. The artisan bread program I built, replaced with par-baked frozen loaves. The vintage decor, stripped away for generic modern fixtures. The loyal customers who'd supported us from the beginning, slowly stopping coming as the quality plummeted and prices rose. He's installed TV screens everywhere, Lucy texted one day, playing advertisements on loop. The place looks like a fast food chain now. I didn't respond, but I saved the message along with all the others. Each update was another piece of evidence that I filed away carefully, knowing they would be useful soon. 3 months after James took over, my mother called. The numbers are concerning, she said hesitantly. James says it's just growing pains, but your father is worried. Would you consider coming back, just to help smooth things over? No, I said simply and hung up. Instead, I focused on my plan. I'd taken a job at another bakery across town, working the early morning shift. The owner, Margaret, had been in the business for 30 years and became something of a mentor to me. She understood what I was going through. She'd lost her first bakery to her ex-husband years ago. Men like your brother, she said one morning as we shaped croissants side by side. They think running a food business is just about spreadsheets and profit margins. They don't understand that every recipe, every customer interaction, every little detail matters. She was right. James saw the cafe as just another business venture, something to be optimized and scaled. He didn't understand that our customers came for more than just coffee and pastries. They came for the experience, the personal touch, the quality that couldn't be mass-produced. 4 months in, the cafe's reputation was in shambles. The local food blog that had once named us Best Bakery in Boston published a scathing review of the changes. Regular customers took to social media to express their disappointment. James' response was to hire a PR firm and offer discount coupons, throwing good money after bad. 5 months in, suppliers started calling me. Your brother's behind on payments, they said. Is everything okay over there? I took notes of every call, every complaint, building my case piece by piece. Then, exactly 6 months after James took over, my father showed up at my apartment. He looked older than I remembered, worry lines etched deep in his face. We need to talk, he said. I let him in, but didn't offer him anything. The last time I'd offered him something I'd baked, he'd given it to James to sell. The cafe is in trouble, he admitted, sinking into my couch. James, he's made some mistakes. The bank is threatening to foreclose. I waited, saying nothing. We need your help, Anna. The customers keep asking for you. The staff is threatening to quit. Even your mother can see we made a terrible mistake. And James? What does he say? Dad's expression darkened. He's already moved on. Says the market wasn't right, the location was wrong, some nonsense about economic conditions. He's looking at starting a cryptocurrency company now. Of course he was. James never stuck around for the fallout of his failures. How bad is it? I asked, though I already knew from my sources. Bad. We're 3 months behind on the loan payments. Suppliers are demanding cash up front. The health inspector cited us for violations last week. We're weeks away from having to close permanently. I walked to my desk and pulled out a thick folder. 6 months of documentation, photographs, customer complaints, supplier issues, and financial records that my friends in the industry had helped me gather. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, sitting down across from him. "You and Mom are going to sign the business over to me. Completely. No conditions, no co-signing, no family involvement. I'll take over the debt, negotiate with the bank, and rebuild what James destroyed." But I'm not finished. I cut him off. "You're also going to write a formal letter to every employee James fired, offering them their jobs back with back pay. And you're going to take out a public notice in the local paper acknowledging that removing me from the business was a mistake." He stared at me, this daughter he'd never taken seriously, and I saw the moment he realized just how badly he'd underestimated me. "You've been planning for this," he said slowly. "Since the day you let James take my dream away," I confirmed. "Did you really think I'd just give up and walk away forever?" 2 weeks later, I stood in my cafe again, truly mine this time, with no strings attached. The papers were signed, the announcements made, the apologies issued. Maria was back in the kitchen, already working on bringing back our signature items. Lucy and the other staff members were reinstalling the vintage decor they carefully stored away. The local food blog published a new article, "Sweet Dreams Returns to Its Roots. Original owner takes back the reins." Our old customers started coming back, drawn by the smell of fresh baked bread and the promise of restoration. My mother stopped by on our first day back under my management. She stood awkwardly by the counter, watching as I decorated a wedding cake, something James had deemed unprofitable and eliminated. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "We should have trusted you. Should have seen what you were capable of." I finished piping a delicate sugar flower before responding. "Yes, you should have. And James? Will you ever forgive him?" I thought about my brother, already moved on to his next venture, leaving others to clean up his mess as usual. "James did me a favor," I said finally. "He showed me exactly how strong I am, how much I'm capable of, and he showed you exactly why you should have believed in me in the first place." She nodded slowly and left. I went back to my cake, to my kitchen, to my dream that I'd fought so hard to reclaim. A year later, Sweet Dreams was thriving again. The loan was being paid off steadily, our reputation restored and enhanced. I'd even opened a small baking school in the space next door, teaching others the skills I'd worked so hard to master. James never came back to the cafe. Last I heard, his cryptocurrency venture had failed and he was looking into house flipping. But I kept his corporate makeover photos prominently displayed in my office, a reminder that sometimes you have to lose something to truly appreciate how hard you'll fight to get it back. Yesterday, a young woman came into the cafe for a job interview. She was fresh out of culinary school, passionate about baking, eager to learn. She reminded me of myself at that age. "My brother says I'm wasting my time," she told me nervously. "Says I should get a real job in business." I smiled, thinking of the journey that had brought me here. "Let me tell you a story," I said, "about a baker who lost everything to her brother's business sense, and how she got it all back, and then some."